My name is Claire Casey. I work with the Childhood Development Initiative in Tallaght. I manage our Restorative Practices Programme, which began in 2010 as part of our Community Safety Initiative. At the time, we were trying to pilot and test out getting community safety contracts working in local neighbourhoods in Tallaght, and we were struggling with it. People couldn't really figure out what a community safety contract would look like. And then we heard about restorative practices at a conference we went to, and it was like a light bulb going off in everybody's heads, because restorative practices is actually a philosophy and a set of really practical skills around building really good relationships between people, which when you practice it, you effectively prevent conflict really well. But when it does arise, because we're humans and it always does, you also have skills for resolving it in a very healthy manner. So the programme started in 2010 with the intended outcomes of improving relationships between agencies, improving relationships between service providers and service users, in reducing neighbourhood disputes on our Community Safety Initiative pilot sites, and reducing antisocial behaviour and hopefully crime, and to reduce disciplinary actions in school and improve morale among staff in school. Those were the programme aims at the time, so it was pretty ambitious. It took about 5 months between February and June 2010, where we did desk research and a lot of consultation with the stakeholders who became the people driving the programme. So the schools, the young people, the parents, the community groups and so on, and the council and the guards and all the people really working with young people. So it was consultation, a lot of consultation went into getting it started. So the consultation process threw up a lot of champions for restorative practices, because it was a really organic process. It was moving to implementation involved setting up a management committee, and we found ourselves it was very exciting at the time, because I'm a community worker, this doesn't normally happen. People were ringing us up asking to get onto the committee because people were really interested. We didn't have to actually go looking for volunteers. So we got more, an implementation plan was put together by that management committee. The biggest challenge around that, in fact, and it's one that I wouldn't complain about in the sense it's just it was that in a couple of instances we got phone calls from people who'd heard about what we were doing and were very insulted that we hadn't contacted them. So that was, it wasn't anything deliberate, it was just we hadn't thought to contact them. So there was sort of a challenge about maybe having the time and the space to really think about all the people that needed to be involved at the start. But we got there over the 4 or 5 months and 6 months at the start, and everybody that needed to be involved got involved. So in terms of the agencies that were represented, but also who have taken part in the restorative programme, all of the agencies that actually have responsibility for children are involved. So the schools, the county council, that's South Dublin County Council, the Gardaí, the probation service, for OIGA, all the youth services, so the guarded diversion projects and so on, the community centres. We're linked in with the County Childcare Committee. They recently decided that they want the county to become restorative. Everybody who needs to be involved, and there's a restorative justice service in Tallaght, so we've been working with them as well, and parents and young people themselves, very importantly. How we went about it in 2010 is we began working with a UK-based training provider called the International Institute for Restorative Practices, basically to provide training to our target groups, which I've already talked about, which would have been the schools and the youth service and the guards and so on. So they worked with us over 2.5, almost 3 years, to do two things: to provide training to the target groups, but also to develop a bank of local trainers so that the programme could become sustainable. And the training developed over that time to become more suitable for our target groups. So what it takes for, say, an organisation to take on restorative practices is that everybody in the organisation does 1 day's training, and then a percentage, about 10% of the personnel or the people involved would do a further 2 to 3 days training in facilitation skills. And they become the kind of implementation team in the group. But becoming a restorative organisation means agreeing to work in a different way, to work in a way that's fair, that's respectful with each other, and to have agreements about how conflict will be dealt with that are restorative. So the focus would be on not blaming people, not looking for somebody to scapegoat, but the focus would be on sorting the problem out, healing the relationship, and coming up with a solution that everybody can live with. It's a radically different way of going at things than people normally think about it, maybe particularly in schools around discipline. In schools where they take on restorative practices, and in Tala they have done this, they have seriously either totally eliminated suspension of schools or suspension of students for anything, or seriously diminished it, and they have in 3 of the schools that I've talked to in the last 2 months, they've told me they have completely eliminated bullying among the students. That's the kind of impact that restorative practices has when it gets taken on, and it's amazing. It just changes those kids' lives. We're really, really interested in seeing the outcomes in terms of their academic ability in the next 2 to 3 years. The first 2 years of implementation were independently evaluated by the Child and Family Research Centre at the Galway University at NUI in Galway. So they looked at two levels of implementation. They looked at the training programme, but also then how the rest of the supports were organised. So they did find that the programme had been well delivered. In terms of the outcomes, the overall outcomes for our programme, they found promising results because it was only 2 years. I think if we had been able to run the evaluation for 4 years, we would have gotten stronger results. But they were promising results in relation to people's increased ability to manage conflict, better relationships between agencies, better relationships between service providers and service users. There was a very good result around that, which brought the rest of the council staff along with us when they heard how well their colleagues had, how much their colleagues had reduced the amount of hassle they had with their customers. We started getting calls about the training from the council. So those kind of things really impressed people. Just after 2 years, we were able to show that there was an improvement in the amount of reporting of antisocial behaviour from the sites where we were working, and there was a reduction in neighbourhood disputes. For that reason, it was so successful. Like it has completely taken legs since. And we do ongoing evaluations of the training that we provide just by giving trainees evaluation sheets. But we're now looking at sponsoring a couple of master's students to measure a couple of other things that we really want to know about, including like academic achievement in schools and safety and antisocial behaviour. There are restorative practices programmes, not CDI's programme, but there's restorative practice work happening in Limerick, in Waterford, in Ballyfermot, the northwest inner city, in Coolock, and in the Docklands area. Now, we are working very closely to support the work in the Docklands because they're another ABC programme. They're kind of a sister organisation, a new organisation we're associated with. So we are also, in terms of rolling out our programme, we're working closely with the Irish Prison Service and with Overstown, the National Children's Detention Schools, who have both agreed that they want to be restorative organisations. So that's a big piece of work we're involved with at the moment. If we were starting again, we would take more time to research and look around training providers, like the appropriate training providers, and what would work best for us. And we would pilot any training. If we were doing a new program around anything, we would pilot the training first. We kind of knew we should have done this anyway, we just were in too much of a hurry. Pilot the training first and think seriously about how it gets developed from there. Get on the National Forum's website. It's restorativepracticesireland.ie, and there's loads of resources and information there about how to get the programme going. I would really recommend, if you're interested, or that any organisation or any individual is interested in learning and growing in terms of better relationships between people and constructive resolution of conflict, have a look at restorative practices. It really works.